Okay, welcome back to the First and Gold podcast. I'm your host, Sam Gold, and today we have a very special video, one that I've been wanting to do for a long time. As you see by the title, it's a power ranking video. And I know, some people like to do these weekly. I think we had something similar with our standings predictions preseason. That was kind of like a power rankings video. But this one's going to be a very official one where I'm going to be ranking every NFL team from worst to first. Now, I know not a lot of people are going to love my list because it's completely subjective, and so many NFL teams are so close to each other that it really could go either way with some of these rankings. But I do want to preface before we start that this isn't just purely listing off the standings, because then that wouldn't really be a true power ranking. It would be boring. I'd just be listing the actual teams by worst to first by standings. It wouldn't work. Anyways, what I'm going to base it on is half of how they've done this season and the other half of how I think they're going to end up for the rest of the year, barring no major injuries, of course. We can't predict that. But, if you're watching this video, currently we are filming this going into week 9 of the NFL. So I don't know if you happen to stumble upon this video maybe a couple weeks later. Just remember, if I don't mention something maybe big that happened in the future, that's why. So this is between week 8 and 9. I felt like it was the right time to do it now for the midseason power rankings. So let's start and find out who I think is the worst team in the NFL. Starting at number 32 is none other than the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people probably see this one coming. Somehow they have one win on the year already, thanks to Andy Dalton, and just one of those games where a backup quarterback comes in and plays lights out for some reason, even if it's the Panthers, and they put up 36 points on the Raiders. So, Panthers fans, you guys have been through just the worst of times ever since Cam Newton left the team. Even before that, ever since 2018, it's just been heartbreak and misery and depression. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get too upset here, or make you guys upset, but I'm sure any Panthers fans watching this, really any NFL fan, expected them to at least be in the bottom 3, if not last, which is where I have them. And yeah, I feel like there's just not a lot to talk about with them. They have literally maybe 1 to 2 very good players on their team. And all the other teams we're going to talk about today, I don't know if I could say that. That's an issue, and that's why they're in dead last. So sorry, Panthers. You're last. You're 32. Let's go to number 31, which is the team I just mentioned. The Panthers beat this year. Yes, I am going to put the Las Vegas Raiders at number 31. I know. And anybody that knows me, I'm a Chiefs fan. So maybe some people are going to assume this is automatic bias, but I'll give you my reasoning because I also pinned the Raiders in my preseason standings predictions as a team that's going to make the playoffs and be 10-7. So I'm going to be the first one to completely own up to it. The Raiders are terrible this year. I genuinely thought Antonio Pierce was going to be a better coach than he is right now. I thought Gardner Minshew would at least be competent, but he has really put together barely any good games this year. It's just not working out. Max Crosby is really the only bright spot on that defense that has been struggling. I know they have a couple nice players in the secondary, but overall, they've struggled. I mean, I just mentioned it. They let up 36 points against who I have marked as the worst team in the NFL. And they're just one of those teams that like to talk a lot of shit. As a Chiefs fan, of course, we just beat them this past Sunday. And, Mahomes said it'll get handled when it gets handled because they were talking a lot of shit about us in the offseason. And they're just one of those teams you kind of look at the last 2 decades, and they've become a laughingstock. They've become a shell of themselves. People think of the Raiders as one of these super intimidating teams that like to play lights out on defense and to push you around, but it's just really not how they've been in the last how many ever years, but especially this season. It's been a tough one. I believe, they're 2-5, 2-6. So yeah, the Raiders are going to come in at 31. All right. Number 30, the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is an interesting one because I don't think they're as bad as their 1-6 record. I think there have been a lot of sloppy play on the offensive side of the ball. They just got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, rightfully so. Let the man live finally. Let him have a good quarterback for once. It's really because their defense isn't terrible and they have pieces here and there. And I don't hate Brian Callahan. I just don't think he's really had a chance to work with this team yet. It's really just been the quarterback situation with the Titans. Like, when Will Levis is making mistake after mistake, and then you try to put in a guy like Mason Rudolph isn't going to give your team a spark at all. And Titans fans know this. So they're kind of just stuck in a shitty situation where you're going to just have to shut it all down with Will Levis and regroup next offseason, get another quarterback, try to rebuild. And that's why you're number 30, because you're one of the worst teams in the NFL, unfortunately. But I don't think you're as bad. I still think you're frisky, the Titans. They can go out there and, like, end the Colts season or something. You know what I mean? They're one of those teams where they could win on any given Sunday. And I don't think they're the worst of the worst, but I have them in my bottom 3. So there you go. Titans at 30. Okay, number 29 is the New England Patriots. I was debating whether to put them a couple slots higher because their defense is very solid. I like their pieces a lot. They just got rid of Josh Uche, who just went to the Chiefs. Let's go. Happy about that. But let's just be real. They do have one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. They've had no receiver room, basically, in the last 5 years at least, ever since Edelman's been gone, Brady's been gone. They're a shell of themselves. We all know this. The Patriots have done nothing outside of one Mac Jones weird playoff Pro Bowl season in 2021. They've done nothing since Brady has left, and they're kind of just stuck in this situation where I actually like what I've seen so far from Drake May. And if he just can stay healthy, I can see them continuing to at least keep some of these games close and to tack on a few more wins. But I think their major issue right now is skill position players. And if they can go out and get a guy like Travis Hunter in the draft next year, they'll start moving up these power rankings because the Patriots, as an organization, now, I don't know if their GM is that good because the fact that you gave away Josh Uche for a 6th-round pick when you literally called him a cornerstone staple of your team, that's not a good look for the GM. So, Patriots fans, comment down below. I don't know if you like your general manager, but maybe just because I grew up watching the Patriots and they've been great, I trust them to not be this bad for much longer. So, hopefully Drake May works out. And, yeah, for now, they're going to be at number 29. All right, 28. This is a team that were number 1 on a lot of people's power rankings after week 2 of this season. And I've said this a million times on the podcast already. We're going to look back and be like, what the fuck were the first 2 weeks for this team? And this is the New Orleans Saints. Put up 91 total points from week 1 and 2 combined. That almost set an NFL record offensively. I think it was like the top 3 all time. And then they've lost every game since. They've literally looked like one of the worst teams in the NFL. I don't care that Derek Carr got hurt. It's much more than that. It's the fact that their cap situation has been one of the worst, if not the worst, in the NFL for the last God knows how many seasons. They're like minus $80 million in debt right now. I don't know how they're going to work that out. Spencer Rattler has already shown that he's just not the guy. Even if you want to move on from Derek Carr, you got to find a way to get another quarterback. It has to be through the draft because you cannot afford to pay another guy like Derek Carr, which, by the way, you already had that cap situation, and then you went out and paid that much money for a top 22 quarterback at this point in his career. He's not even that good anymore. So there's just so many issues with the organization with the Saints right now. And you could just tell how much it's going downhill just from this season. And they need a season like this. I know Saints fans are sad, especially after those first 2 weeks, and now they're at 28 on my list. But you need a season. You need to go like 4-13 this year, honestly, because this is finally what would wake up the front office. And I know in the back of their heads they know they're screwed, but this is really what's going to wake them up to actually make a change for once, sell the entire team, finally get some money back, and just restart. Take a few years off and restart. You can't keep doing these seasons where you end 7-10 and you're more and more screwed as the money keeps building up, because it's never going to amount to anything in the long term. It's only going to amount to, yeah, you can win some games sometimes in the regular season in the short term, but it's not going to work out if you keep doing this. So just keep on sucking. It's honestly not bad. Just root for your team to lose. I know it sounds hard, and that's why they're at 28. 27 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is a team that I had going, I believe, 8-1 going into this season. A lot of people had them making the playoffs, a bounce back year after they had that weird, what did they lose? Like 6 games in a row to end the season last year. And then they started 0-5, I believe, this year. Yeah, 0-4, 0-5. I think it was 0-4, actually. But just, oh, gosh, I don't even know where to start with the Jaguars. It's not even We'll get to Trevor Lawrence in a second because he's now getting paid $55 million a year. I don't even know who to blame because every time Trevor Lawrence actually does something good on offense, their defense has nothing to back them up. And it just feels like no matter what part of this team does well, they're just so... they're not well-rounded enough to put together any of these winning games. They've only won 2 this season. And they've been in some close ones, but they don't have the confidence right now. Doug Peterson, it just feels like he completely lost the team. It almost feels like he's accepting the fact that even if it's not entirely his fault, he's probably going to get fired after the end of the season or even mid-season. And now that they have this with Trevor Lawrence, obviously he took you to a playoff run 2 years ago, won a playoff game, and now you paid him $55 million a year. You don't want to think he's a bust. I don't think he's a full-on bust at all. He still made some good plays this year, but just sneaky. Not a lot of people talk about it because the Jaguars are such a new franchise, but sneaky misery, man, with those Jags fans. I feel so bad. Like, just not only such an irrelevant team to a lot of people, but a lot of dysfunction. So, yeah, it's been a disaster this season so far. We'll see if they can pick it up and win a few more games, but yeah, what are they, 2-6 right now? It's not looking good. So, yeah, the Jaguars at 27. All right, we're going to kind of bundle these two teams in here at 26 and 25 because they're both from the same area. Our area, New Jersey. Let's start at 26. It's going to be the Giants. And then at 25, we'll get to them as the Jets. So, yeah, the Giants at 26. I've said this year after year, as long as they have Daniel Jones. I said this 2 years ago, or like a year and a half ago, whenever they paid Daniel Jones. Absolute mistake. I don't care. That was his ceiling in 2022. That's the best you're going to get, is a very lucky season where you end up winning these weird close games with a brand new coach. And Daniel Jones is not the answer. We all know that. Giants fans know that now. And it sucks because they're wasting such a good defense. And I believe they lead the league in sacks this year. And there's parts where I'm like, ooh, the Giants, like, they're in this right now. They're not a horrible team. And then they just go on these stints where they can't do anything. And they're like one of the most boring teams to watch in primetime. I can't stand them being in primetime. The same thing goes with the Jets at 25. You know, on my regular recap episodes, I said I'm done talking about the Jets this year if they would have lost against the Patriots. And that's what they did. So, Jets fans, listen up. This is like the one time I'll talk about you guys just because we're doing a power rankings video. Genuinely, it's been a roller coaster, obviously, for Jets fans, but just from an outside perspective, even as a Chiefs fan, I'm just tired. I'm exhausted with the Jets at this point. You guys were 4-3 last year with Zach Wilson, and now you're 2-6 with Aaron Rodgers. Make it make sense? Oh, yeah, I'm going to make it make sense. It's because you're the New York Jets. That's all it is. You are cursed. I don't know what happened. Joe Namath must have sold his soul to win that Super Bowl back in 1969, and now you guys are just forever. You have to be. And sometimes it's funny, whatever. You get to meme about the Jets, and oh my gosh, I can't believe Aaron Rodgers got hurt in the first game last year. That's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then he has his comeback story, and you're kind of rooting for him, and you feel bad. And then it's turned from a point where I'm feeling bad and I'm rooting for you, where just get the fuck off my screen. I can't take it with the Jets. I don't understand how people are fans of this team. And I just happen to grow up in the area. I'm not even a Jets fan. It's just, oh my gosh. You guys are lucky you're not even below teams like the Jaguars. I almost put you guys below like the Patriots because you guys just lost to them. Now, the only reason I have you guys higher is because you just have a lot more talent. And it just doesn't feel right to have all those players on this team and not be higher. So, I mean, I said this a couple weeks ago. What makes a bad team is lack of chemistry, turnovers, not being accountable for your mistakes, all that type of shit. And that's what the Jets are. They're just a bad team this year, and it's disappointing, and I hate it. So, yeah, they're at number 25. 24 is another team with a lot of controversy surrounding it that has just had an up and down past couple of years. It's the Cleveland Browns. So luckily we are doing this after week 8. If this was 1 week before, the Browns probably would have been in like my bottom 4, honestly. But the fact that Deshaun Watson is out, he got hurt, and Jameis Winston came in, he lit it up. Now, I don't think Jameis Winston by any means is going to be this the rest of the season. We all know, we've had years and years of tape on this guy. We know that he's going to have a game where he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then next week he's most likely going to come out and throw for 3 interceptions. So I'm not expecting the Browns' offense by any means to be consistent. They just got rid of Amari Cooper as well. But you got to look at the roster, and when Jameis does have these good games, the Browns could beat anybody on Sunday. They literally just proved that with the Ravens. I think a Deshaun Watson-less Browns could be a scary team one day if you actually get a real quarterback, because their defense has so many good pieces. Nick Chubb is finally healthy. Their offensive line is solid. So that's why, I'm not going to put them too high, obviously, because of how disastrous their season's been, and I just don't think they can really come back from it at this point. But I'm going to put them above the teams like the Jets and Giants, because I think if the Browns played the Jets or the Giants right now, they would definitely beat them. And I like Jameis Winston, and now they're a lot easier to root for. So there you go, Browns fans. You have something, I guess, to cheer about. You're number 24. Okay, now we kind of have this cutoff where these are teams that I would say are not completely out of the playoff race yet, but are like right there, and this is why they're still in the 20s, but I don't necessarily think they're that bad. They have a lot of good talent. So let's start with number 23, and it is unfortunately the Miami Dolphins. I like the Dolphins. I'm rooting for the Dolphins, but the fact that Tua came back against the Cardinals and they still lost, and now they're 2-5. And look, the rest of their division, other than the Bills, is also only has 2 wins. But in the grand scheme of things, it just feels like they wasted so much of this beginning half of the season without Tua, and they lost the game coming back. It's going to be a really, really tough hole to dig yourself out of. It's going to be tough sledding for the Dolphins for sure. And look, they're going to have their moments, especially on offense. Tyreek Hill's going to have his touchdowns. Devon Achane's been great. And I'm sure Tua will have his games. But at the end of the day, like, it sucks because I like the guy. But I just think Mike McDaniel very quietly has a small chance of getting fired after the season. I really do. And, I don't think a lot of people want to hear it. But he literally proved it without Tua. Without a system in place that you're so used to, you couldn't really adjust and do anything. Maybe that's the talent of your quarterbacks. I also didn't like Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley at all. But you guys were just a non-existent football team without Tua at all. So there's just a lot of holes to poke through. The defense has actually been kind of underrated this year. But overall with the Dolphins, I just have to put them this low because all the teams in front of it just have a better outlook for the rest of the season. Maybe besides the team I'm about to put at 22. This is why these two teams are so close. At 22, I have the Seattle Seahawks, who started 3-0 this year. Were looking great, although their opponents they played weren't that great. So I guess it was kind of like a fake 3-0. But anyways, they felt like this 9-8, 10-7 team. And now DK Metcalf got injured, and their defense is starting to play a lot worse. And Geno Smith is turning the ball over. And now they're 4-4, and the Rams are coming back healthy. And the 49ers are about to get Christian McCaffrey. And the Cardinals are 4-4. All these things, all these elements makes me less and less confident about the Seahawks, who really haven't proven to me that they're a playoff caliber team in really like the last 4 or 5 weeks. So it's an issue. I don't particularly enjoy watching the Seahawks. I think they're pretty boring most of the time, and they just don't. With Geno Smith, there's a ceiling. There's definitely a floor, which is good, which always keeps them in it. But at this point, we're year 3 into Geno Smith starting, and I feel like their ceiling is 9-8 again. And I don't even think they're going to reach that, because the NFC and their opponents left, I just think, are a lot better. But we'll see. I don't know. I just don't have too many high hopes about the Seahawks. But guess what, Seahawks fans? You just made it out of the bottom 10. So you got that. All right. 21. The Indianapolis Colts. Now, I just talked about Anthony Richardson on the prior podcast episode, in that he is just totally not ready for the NFL right now. And yes, he's had his glimmers. He's had his moments. He has a big arm. He is great running the ball. And maybe one day. But right now, the fact that he's going games, like he was 10 for 32 last game. And he's got one of the worst completion percentages I've seen in a long time. He's like 50% completion. And just the eye test, he's just not ready for these defenses right now. And it's unfortunate. And I know he just got benched. Joe Flacco is coming back, which is a good decision. But in the AFC, it's going to be tough. I can totally see them competing for a playoff spot, because I think, you know, they're 4-4, but I don't think their record indicates how good they really are. I think they are a very underrated football team that can make some noise. But I'm just looking at these other teams in front of them, and it's just like they don't have their shit together at quarterback right now. I think they want to play Richardson, but they just can't, and this offense isn't finding chemistry right now or balance. And yeah, I just feel like they got to stick within the 20s of this ranking. So 21, Colts. At number 20 is the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is probably one of the most interesting teams of the entire season. It was my Super Bowl pick going into the year to win the Super Bowl, not even just make it, to win it. And they're 3-5. So, what's the issue with the Bengals? Do we have enough time is the question. Because you think of the Bengals, and now they have a stain on them from 21 and 22 of being this championship caliber team. Last year they were pretty good, but then Burrow got hurt. And now you're expecting them to come back and just be the same. I am one of the only Chiefs fans that roots for the Bengals because I just want to see them win a Super Bowl for my dad, but this just doesn't seem like the season. Their defense is god awful. The coaching is bad. Their training staff, like the injuries that the Bengals suffer year after year, it's just the organization. It's just everything encompassing. And now you could see Joe Burrow really feeling it. You could see it on his face. He's like, yeah, we just got to get 10 wins this year, and I think we'll be all right. We got to go 7-2. Like, even he is just like, yeah, I guess we'll just, like, try to win 7 more games, and that might get us in. Like, you could just see the life getting taken out of this team. A lot of people probably like, yeah, they're still a championship caliber team. They'll get their shit together. No, they're not proving that for me right now, and I really had hope up until a couple weeks ago, but no. And people would say they should be even farther back. The Bengals suck. No, I don't think it's that far. I think Burrow has actually played kind of good this year, and it's really just not fully his fault. I think it's a lot of the coaching and the defense. So with the Bengals, not a season you hoped it to be. Maybe you'll be higher at the end of the season. This is going to be such an interesting storyline going into the second half of the year for the Bengals. All right. Okay, that was our 32 through 20. Now let's get into the teens. Who made it into the teens? At number 19, kind of a shocking one, the Arizona Cardinals. They're 4-4. Before the Cowboys-Niners game, they were first place in their division, and they still have a chance. Now, I cannot put them any higher than 19. And like between the Dolphins, Seahawks, Colts, Bengals, and Cardinals, they were all so close to each other. And just like, even if the Cardinals would have lost to the Dolphins, maybe they would have even like swapped spots. That's how close it was between these like 4 or 5 teams. And I'm only putting the Cardinals this high due to their ceiling. Now, their defense still has a lot of issues to work out. Their defense has sucked for years. I can't take with their defense. But look, when Kyler Murray is on, you got to admit he's one of the most fun quarterbacks in the NFL to watch by far. And when he's on, they're a great offense. He's finally utilizing Marvin Harrison this past week. Hopefully he keeps doing that. And James Conner's a great running back. I think Jonathan Gannon's an underrated head coach. And I'm only putting them this high as well because they actually have a chance in this division that's so tight right now. I think they're better than the Seahawks. We'll see how the Rams do. I still haven't mentioned them yet. They're up there. You'll see. The only issue with the Cardinals is when they have lows, it's really low. Like, they've had a lot of games where they just put up like 13 points and get blown out. And anytime that happens, I just think, oh yeah, the Cardinals are capable of this. But then anytime Kyler Murray goes out there and rushes for 60 yards and throws for 3 touchdowns, I'm like, damn. Like, this is the Kyler Murray and the Cardinals we saw in 2021 when they went 8-0. So, very inconsistent team. I can't put them any higher than 19, but there you are. That's a pretty good ranking for them. Number 18, the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't think I've talked about the Chargers this season. I'm thinking about it. We put out clips every week, and we talk about all these games. Al, I think you could agree. Like, I don't think we've talked about the Chargers. I don't think we've ever talked about the Chargers other than preseason. Seriously, and I'm a Chiefs fan. That's crazy how irrelevant the Chargers have been this year. I haven't seen like any media talking about the Chargers as well. If I picked one out of 32 of these teams that I've seen the least amount of things on like sports media talk, it's the Los Angeles Chargers. And it makes no sense because they're a solid team. Jim Harbaugh's first year coaching, it's off to a decent start. I just think like they don't have enough superstars where they just feel so irrelevant on Sundays. And they kind of just beat the teams they're supposed to, and then they lose to the teams that they're supposed to. And it's just like they're, what are they, 4-3 right now? And I do think they're interesting to look out for, though. Not in terms of, like, me as a Chiefs fan. I think the Chiefs are going to have their number fine. We already beat them once this year. But they go into the 7th seed, and, like, that's a win. For the amount of, for the lack of talent they've had on offense this season with Justin Herbert, although I like Ladd McConkey so far this season, he's been good as a rookie. I think like 9-8, 10-7, and you make the playoffs, that's a big win for the Chargers. That just feels like Jim Harbaugh at least brought some stability, and I like the running game this season, and I think Justin Herbert is quietly doing the most he can with very little. So 4-3 right now for the Chargers. I put them above teams like the Seahawks, the Bengals, the Dolphins. So I feel like I'm giving them a decent amount of respect. And yeah, number 18 they are. Okay, 17. And now this is a tough one because they just suffered a big loss that I'm not sure where I would have ranked them if they would have ended up winning that game, because they would have been 5-2. Now they're 4-3 in last place in the NFC North. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. It's the Bears. Chicago Bears at 17. They just missed the top half of the NFL for my rankings. Now, it's not just because they lost. It's because of the quality of the opponents that they've beaten this season. They've beaten the Titans. They've beaten the Panthers. They beat the Rams with Cooper Kupp and Puka injured. And who is their fourth win? It doesn't really matter. They didn't really beat that many good teams. And Caleb Williams, I like a lot of things I've seen from him this season, but there's also been noticeable struggles on the offensive side of the ball. That, look, it's a rookie. I always advocate for giving rookies time and letting them develop. I think people, just talk way too quick on some of these guys and make up their mind, and that's not what I'm going to do with Caleb Williams. I think he's had some very good moments this year. But at this point, going into the second half of the year with the Packers, Jordan Love will come back at least in 2 weeks, and they'll be fine. And I still think the Vikings are a good team. The Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL. It's going to be really tough for them to make the playoffs. So to have them in the top half of my rankings, which, yeah, the top 14 is kind of your playoff team. So that's how close it is. Yeah, I don't know. With the Bears. It's really tough because their defense is phenomenal. But if the offense isn't on, or if they're not even playing against a bad defense, they kind of just look like one of the weaker teams in the entire NFL, to be honest. So yeah, 17 for the Bears. Here we go, number 16. Yeah, I meant to say here we go because it's the Dak Prescott-led Cowboys. And you guys are lucky that I'm a little bit nicer, because I've seen people rank them at like 22, 21, and they're 3-4. They're 3-4 this season, and they're noticeably worse in a couple regards. Their run defense is terrible. Their rush offense is awful. They can't get anything done on the ground. Dak Prescott has turned the ball over at a higher rate immensely compared to last year. And they just lost to the 49ers in primetime, thus proving once again that nothing has changed when it comes to these big games against these rivals. And now I feel like I'm kind of talking myself out of putting them at 16 and putting them back lower. But look, there's still a thing with the Cowboys where when they do play well, it's really well. And I'm just so used to them making the playoffs. They've won 12 games each of their last 3 seasons. And I still think they have a good shot at making a wild card. We'll see what happens. This is definitely probably the worst season they've had since 2020. They're definitely better than 2020, but they're not the same team as they were the last 3 years. And look, before that, they were like a top 10, top 7 team. I think we used to make these clips on TikTok of me ranking the top 5 teams going in every week, and I'm pretty sure the Cowboys made it on there like half the time. So the fact that they're at 16, that's where I feel like they should be placed this year. I could see them teetering middle of the pack this year. Okay, number 15 is the Denver Broncos. Okay, so defense, one of the best in the NFL. Sean Payton actually doing a decent job this year. Their record, 5-3. Completely shocking for the Broncos, a team that I think I had going like 4-13 this year. One of the worst teams in the NFL. And Bo Nix, not bad. Not bad. Similar numbers to Patrick Mahomes, which, Patrick Mahomes, if you know, he's not having a great season statistically. But if you watch the eye test, Bo Nix, he just game manages right now. And I kind of felt like after the first couple weeks, he was going to be this guy like Will Levis that would completely fuck up a game for you. But it feels like he's really honed it in lately. And it's just taking passes that are given to him. He uses his legs pretty well. And look, we're sitting here. I think the Broncos are the 5th seed. Going into week 9, they're the 5th seed. So that's probably one of the most shocking things of the entire season that not a lot of people are talking about. Now, the strength of schedule, we can get into that. It's not great, the wins that they've had, but wins are wins in the NFL with a rookie quarterback and a team that you didn't think was going to be this good. Props to them. They're in the top 15 right now. So, yeah, Broncos at 15. Number 14, here we go. This is one that people are going to be like, what? They're 3-4. What are you doing? This is the number one case I was making at the beginning of this video, saying that I'm also going to base this on how good I think they're going to be for the rest of the year. And that's why I'm putting the Los Angeles Rams at 14. Now, the 14 is making a playoff spot. So that's where I feel like right now, just in the one game that Cooper Kupp and Puka just came back against the Vikings defense, they put up 28 offensive points, and Matthew Stafford looked pretty much unstoppable the entire time. Yeah, they look like the Rams of week 1 and of last year. So, and they were a playoff team last year. So if they could just actually stay healthy, obviously they have one of the best coaches in the NFL, Matt Stafford, a top 10 quarterback. Their defense, of course, is iffy, but look, when they're playing like that, lights out on offense with Kyren too. What a great trio of skill position players. Kyren Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. I mean, it can't get much better than that. The fact that you just stayed alive barely, you didn't sell your season away. They almost traded away Cooper Kupp, but the fact that they won their last 2 games is huge. Now they're only a half game back of their entire division. They already beat the 49ers, which is big. I really, really feel like the Rams have the potential to go on a run right now and have like another 9-10 win season to make the playoffs. I like the Rams a lot. And look, this isn't a standings prediction. I've been saying this the entire video. This is what I really, truly feel like is one of the best teams in the NFL for the next second half of the year, which is why they're at 14. All right. Now, this is kind of a team that is almost going in the opposite direction, although I have more confidence in them because of their quarterback, because of their coach, and because Mr. Mike Evans should be coming back soon, which is not going to ruin the Tampa Bay Buccaneer season. Tampa Bay Bucks coming in at number 13. They've already lost to the Falcons twice. It feels like at this point, if they're making the playoffs, it's a wild card. But man, can they put up some points on offense, and is Baker Mayfield fun to watch? And yes, I know there's so many issues with their defense, and they don't really have a great running game. Although I like Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving is very underrated. There's just something with the Bucks. Like, it's kind of like with the Cowboys. They've just proven to me year after year, the last few years, that they can just win their division, that they're a fun team to watch sometimes, especially on offense. And if they can just get back to how they were, I know they're not going to have Chris Godwin, but Cade Otton has stepped up big time, by the way. Their tight end, great tight end. If they could just step up with Mike Evans coming back healthy and slip into the wild card, look, all it takes is for Baker to start heating up again, and they're one of those dangerous teams that could put up points against anybody. So I feel like them and the Rams right now are just neck and neck, which is why I have them at 14 and 13. And then number 12, the team that has beaten the Bucks twice, the Falcons. So the Falcons, I got to give the Falcons credit. They're 5-3 right now. They have played better than I thought they were going to play this year. Now, not much better because I had them going 9-8, but I just feel like I'm actually comfortable watching their offense now. They had some struggles in the first few games of the season, and now Kirk Cousins has his confidence back. I feel like Raheem Morris really knows how to utilize him, in shotgun. He doesn't make him run around too often. Their offensive line is good. And they do take advantage of these teams that don't have great passing attacks. And with all those weapons you have, Bijan Robinson's had a solid season. And their defense is underrated. Matt Judon is on the team. Jesse Bates has had a lights-out year at safety. I like the Falcons. And I think the biggest reason for sure of me putting them this high is their division. Now that they've beaten the Bucks twice, it feels like they have a clear path if they stay healthy to at least the 3 or 4 seed in the NFC. Number 11 is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, they just slipped out of the top 10 because there's still a part of me that feels like at any moment they could collapse, or Nick Sirianni's going to lose his mind, or the team's going to lose confidence again. And I can't help it. I know they're playing decent football the last few weeks, but there's still enough holes in this team where I could just see it happening at any point if they lose to a team that they shouldn't have. I don't know how the relationship between the players and the coaches are, but there's just still something off with the Eagles. Now, I'm still putting them pretty high, but they can't reach the top 10 yet. All right, here we go. The moment you guys have been waiting for, our top 10 of the power rankings. Number 10 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're 6-2. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Russell Wilson actually looks good for once, not like the last 2 seasons. And Najee Harris is a good running back again. I don't know. All these things that, look, the Steelers always end up having a decent record in general. But this feels different this year. I can actually trust them. If Russell Wilson actually keeps playing like this for the whole season, they're a contender. And I could totally move them up higher in a few weeks' time. But as of right now, 100% a top 10 team, maybe even higher. And I don't know. As a Chiefs fan, personally, that specific matchup I'm not afraid of. But they could definitely go out and beat the Ravens. They can go out and beat the Texans. They can go out and beat the Bills. Like, they're right there with those teams. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Russell Wilson plays the rest of the season. I like the Steelers a lot. They come in at number 10. Number 9 is the Washington Commanders, who, oh my gosh, what did I have them going? Like 6-11, 7-10 at the beginning of the year. And obviously, there's like 1 or 2 teams every year that has the Cinderella story that you don't expect to be good and then ends up being great, and now you have all this confidence going into the next few seasons, especially the fact that the Commanders have Jaden Daniels. As long as he stays healthy, he could definitely be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. We've already seen that. He's had so many great moments. The Commanders just came off of, honestly, one of the best moments of their franchise of the 21st century, and I'm not joking. It's the Hail Mary to Noah Brown. That was awesome. It really felt like that was the moment the Dan Snyder curse was officially lifted. Now, people would say just the fact that Jaden Daniels looked good, that could be the moment. But, man, I mean, there is so much excitement surrounding this team. They are 6-2, first in their division. They have they're competing for a bye right now. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the Commanders. And as long as Jaden Daniels stays healthy, this is going to be such an exciting team to watch, not only in the playoffs this upcoming season, but for years to come. So finally, Commanders fans, you can rejoice. This is probably the first time you've been in a top 10 in forever. And just one of the most fun teams to watch in the NFL. And good for them. Good for them because they deserve it. They've been through a lot of heartbreak and misery lately. So there you go. Number 9 for the Commanders. Number 8 is going to be a team that is only 4-4 right now. But I just can't help it. They've been great the last 5 years. They have too much talent. And it's the San Francisco 49ers. Christian McCaffrey is coming back after the bye. Luckily, they just beat the Cowboys in primetime to help them get to first place in their division, or at least tied for first place. This is going to be a major test to see, did the 49ers actually take a step back, or did they kind of just have a weird Super Bowl hangover, a couple unlucky losses, they blew a game to the Rams, they blew a game to the Cardinals, and did they just need Christian McCaffrey to come back, maybe Brock Purdy to play a little bit better? This is what we're going to find out in this second half, and just the history behind these players on this roster and this team. I know Brandon Ayuk is out. That's a big hit. But still, they have enough players to get it done, I think, and still make a playoff run, which is why I have them in the top 10, even at 4-4. Okay, number 7. I'm sorry, Al. You're not going to like this one. I'm sure a lot of fans watching this aren't going to like this one. And it's tough. There's a lot of great teams in this top 7. But I went with this specific team because at the end of the day, I just don't have confidence in them in the playoffs. Even if it seems different this year, they have to prove it to me first. And it's the Minnesota Vikings coming in at number 7. I'm sorry. I know their defense is great this year. I know Sam Darnold's been playing great. I know Justin Jefferson's healthy, blah, 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 whatever. They're 5-2. Look, Vikings fans, have fun this year. You weren't expecting your team to be this good. And, enjoy the ride, just like 2 years ago. Just enjoy the ride. Don't worry about the playoffs yet. We'll get to that later in the season. But if we're talking about my rankings, yeah, if they have to go up against the Commanders or like one of these upper class teams, they could definitely lose. It's just the Vikings, man. There's something about this franchise where they're choke artists, and I hate to say it, but look, still having them in my top 7 is pretty high. After I picked them to go 7-10, 8-9 this year, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Vikings. They've lost 2 in a row. And who do they play this week? They play the Colts this week, which is very interesting against Joe Flacco. So if they lose that game, everything's going downhill right now, and they got to get out of a funk before they start really hurtling down. So number 7 for the Vikings. Number 6, the team that just missed the top 5 is the Buffalo Bills. Now, this might feel a little disrespectful. They could totally hit that top 3, 4, 5 spot. But kind of like with the Vikings, I just don't trust them come playoff time at this point. They've had enough seasons to prove to get to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen, and they just can't get past teams like the Chiefs and Bengals. They just can't do it. And I know they've played very solid football this year. Josh Allen, I believe, only has 1 turnover going into Week 9, which is crazy for him. But there's just something. Like with the Vikings Bills, it's mostly an emotional reaction with these rankings and these placements. I could just see it once again. Divisional round. Chiefs are playing the Bills. The Bills are down 3. Something happens. They lose. Like, it's just in their DNA, and they have to prove it to me. They have to. And I know the Lions haven't been picked yet. I could kind of say the same thing for them. But we'll get to them in a little bit. All right, here's the top 5. Number 5 is the Houston Texans. Now, I've said this a lot this season. They're 6-2 right now. And CJ Stroud, although he hasn't been super flashy and phenomenal, I felt like he has made a nice season together so far in the first half. And their team has won a lot of these close games where I've said this before, like, that's kind of what makes a championship caliber team, is getting into various situations, even if it's close, even if you feel like you're supposed to blow out these teams. And you go out there and win it, and you stay confident, you stay calm, just like CJ Stroud has, and you do what you need to do to win. That's kind of how you prep for the playoffs. And another thing with the Texans, CJ Stroud hasn't played the Chiefs yet. So they play in Week 16. That's going to be really interesting to see how they match up against the Chiefs, because that's one of the last big-time AFC teams, which I haven't seen Mahomes get to play against yet. So I'm interested to see how they match up, and I think they are for sure a contender to get to the AFC Championship at least. Number 4, this is going to be the controversial one that people are like, you're putting them way too high, but it's the Green Bay Packers. I have them going to the Super Bowl still in my prediction. If I had gun to my head, if I had to change it right now, I'd change it to the Lions. But I still feel pretty confident. The fact that they're undefeated with Malik Willis at quarterback, and then Jordan Love can go out there in the games he's healthy, throw for multiple picks, and they still beat these good teams in those games. That's a scary team right there. They are one of the youngest teams in the NFL. Their defense is awesome. Matt LaFleur is a great coach. And for some reason, I just trust them. Maybe it's just their organization in general, but I just trust the Packers to go out there and make a playoff run. And I think if Jordan Love really heats it up and limits those turnovers, they're going to be one of the scariest teams in the NFL for sure. So yeah, number 4. Here we go. Top 3. Number 3 is the Baltimore Ravens. Now, their obvious flaw is their defense, which really scares me come playoff time, because in the past, what you had to worry about is Lamar Jackson kind of turning into a pumpkin in the playoffs and not performing well enough, and then they lose in that way. But now that Lamar's having one of his best seasons, now that Derrick Henry's on the team, and he's been phenomenal, honestly might win MVP at this point. But yeah, their defense just... That's going to be the one. Ravens fans, remember this. If you go back and you lose another playoff game, you know why it's going to be this year. But you're number 3. Number 2 is the Detroit Lions. Now, everybody's like, you're biased, you're a Chiefs fan. Of course, you're going to put the Chiefs at 1 and the Lions at 2. The Lions are clearly better. They blow every team out. Their offense is great, whatever. But come on, guys. Come on. Who knows how to actually win a championship at the end of the day and has the experience and has the best quarterback in the NFL, the best coach in the NFL, top 3 defense, top 3 offensive line, top 3 special teams, and has done this before? It's the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's the only reason I'm putting them against the Lions. Because, yes, have the Lions played better football games for the most part this year? Sure. But the Chiefs are undefeated. They're 7-0 while playing lackluster on offense with all those injuries. And guess what? You know what the offensive lineup's going to be when the Chiefs start their first playoff game? Barring no other injuries, of course. Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Marquise Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, Juju, and Travis Kelce. I'm sorry, but if Mahomes can get his shit together, that's just as scary as the Lions offense. I don't care what anyone says. So that's why the Chiefs are at number 1 and the Lions are at number 2. And I really hope that's the Super Bowl matchup, because that would be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the rest of the season goes. Once again, for people that just wanted to hear the end results, best team in the NFL, I think, is the Chiefs, and the worst, I'm sorry, is the Panthers. And then the rest, you guys just gotta watch the video. So, see where your favorite team fell. Very exciting list here. I'm sure it's very controversial, and a lot of people have differing opinions, which we love. I want to hear it. Comment down below what you guys think, where each team should rank, if I'm wrong, if I'm right, whatever it is, we love it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. and follow us at First and Gold on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as well. And keep watching these videos because maybe we'll do an end-of-season power rankings as well. But that was a lot of fun. Here's to a great second half of the season. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next video. Goodbye.